for a number of us, personally for me, I initially when the whole conversation started, and until it became, they wanted to write the whole tourism argument and everything that got all of us out. It was like, okay, well, this is perfect. If you look at the investment the church has made to the country over time, investment in schools, hospitals and everything, obviously it would have been important to create something that's a reminder of the investment that the church has been making in Ghana over time. However, I'm sure that even the church as a unit, for instance, would differ on the times of how this was going to happen and the level of state involvement in it. So when the initial narrative was that, oh well, the state wasn't going to fund it, people backed down a bit. Even when they made suggestions regarding the land usage and all of those things, people backed down on it. Now, for us involved in the Tourism, Culture and Space Act, you would have realized that there hasn't been an overarching and a certain transformative agenda by the president to have to enable it. If you look at even for 5.5 years, for instance, if you look at the 21 promises they made to the sector, for instance, so far it's been only one that they've been able to deliver on. And even with the one, there's been a certain problem regarding the executions of it because of what? Lack of money. When the state deemed it fit to elevate and redevelop some of our tourist sites and everything, which already is part of the Ghanaian story, the context that helps to bring people into the country, for instance, they went to the World Bank for the tourism development project credit facility that we went to for the $40 million and everything, which is helping to do all of these things and stuff like that. So if for me sitting back and seeing that a lot of these things has not been done, for me sitting back and realizing that creative and culture, which assets gains in tourism, which provide the content that holds tourism and continue to bring people into the country, for instance, have not seen that much investment. For me to actually even realize that almost about $300 million is going to be, that ordinarily would have created an opportunity for people working within the creative economy, because of course designers and architects are all working in the creative community. If such an amount of money could be willed to just a single person, denying people the opportunity, people that have been investing in the market over time, the opportunity to have to raise that kind of money to expand in the country and continue to pay the statutory payment they do, it was problematic for me. And that was where I began to point it out, like, look, I don't think tourism was part of it. Obviously, it was there, like Chief Mumin will say, it was a post-rationalization of it, because then now there were questions regarding if we're going to put in $400 million into anything that was going to enable tourism in the country. Obviously, you know where to start, because you probably could have started with the promises that you made that almost everybody understands that, well, these are some of the things that the industry or the industry needs.
Yes.
Let me answer to that.
Yeah.
When Chief made indicated to you how people do not necessarily just visit these things without context and the story. What would be the unique story that would pull or compel people to come? That's it, because after you've built the museum, don't forget you'd have to be engaged in other marketing or creating a certain narrative around it that will compel people to come. The Mecca example, for instance, is different. When you go into Mecca, for instance, there's a place where they call the Zamzam, and people actually even go to fetch the Zamzam because there's a certain belief in the miracle inherent in the water. Also because there's a story behind it. So often people are compelled by the story. What was what we used to pull a lot of people to Ghana? Our slave heritage and our story, the story that's connected to it, the fact that we have over 65 slave sites in this. So in this particular case, beyond the design of the building, what will be that unique story that is connected to us that you
the
can
pull
find
factor?
That's
what you're talking about.
Of the context.
Yes, there's no. What is the context? Look, Bryce Simmons gave a certain, when he was analyzing or trying to find out the relationship between what we're looking to build with the Bible or the Museum Bible, for instance,
Bible Museum,
for instance, who apparently are going to help to curate our Bible Museum here, and he cited some of the problems and issues that they had. Some of the things that turned out to be fake, some of the stuff that they put out there were not things. It created a whole lot of conversations which impacted them. So in our case, for instance, what is that unique connection in the evolution of Christianity here that will compel people to come here? That is not probably
look at
it generally. even some of the men of God here are already attracting people because there's a certain story, there's a certain amplification around the miracle powers that they have. I mean, some of the churches, Obi Nim is getting numbers over the year. If you put it together to try to check out about, measure the numbers he makes every week for some of his services, for instance, you probably get the numbers.
Obinim, that's the one who can charm passports, right? Sorry, not charm, who can make passports appear from the embassy.
Obinim, look at any of the churches.
Let me. That one is, by the way.
For instance, let me just land. Look, I know why the Central Church, for instance, may have found a reason to create a new center that apparently takes more than 15,000 people behind the trade fair. Also because they're experiencing these numbers on the daily, and some of the numbers are coming in the West African sub-region. But why are they coming? There's a story, and sometimes the story sits with the particular man of God that is actually even driving it. Some of them are coming because of Otabil, Pastor Otabil. Some of them are also coming to some of the churches because Dagwood Mills is there. Some of the issues. See, look, there's a young guy that's doing amazing work. Iraq. He runs one of the youth churches for Christ Embassy, the UPSA branch. You should see the numbers of young people that are there. There's a certain story, there's a certain context that pulls in the people, not necessarily the building. When he even started at one of the hotels, for instance, they were coming. It didn't matter where when he went to Fantasy.
Not a good
George,
thing then.
George, where we have all differed is the level of state involvement and investment in it. Right. That's where we differed.
Okay.
We have made the point, and that's where, in fact, even for them, when you ask them, for instance, to rationalize the investment, then they pushed it to tourism. Then people in the sector began to point out to things that if tourism really mattered to you, and you were not just looking for a certain weak leg to run on or stand on, there were a number of things you would have done to enable tourism in this particular town. The president actually even said that tourism now, even without that overarching transformative agenda to enable it, is your third biggest contributor to the GDP.
You keep mentioning
that. He stated that.
He stated it at the launch of the museum.
This is even without that overarching and full support or investment, and it's driven heavily by, even with all the problems. So she tell you that what he challenged the tourism ministry to do, for instance, which is by 2024, deliver 2 million visitors. 2 million visitors. You could see that with just as little support from the state in actively enabling the sector, we could just hit it. But if you actually even look at even their main objective, what was the plan?
What are they coming to see?
They said that they were looking to target 10% of the 600 million Christian population in Africa, which would have amounted to what? 60 million.
Oh, you mean with the cathedral?
With the cathedral, which I wanted. And it's not realistic. It looks like it's not been well thought through.